Hello and welcome back to another Reaconteur video, and in today's video I will be talking about Absolvement. I've gotten tons of comments to make a video on this game and I'm finally doing it after playing it in beta. Before we get into it, check me out at twitch.tv/Reaconteur where I'm live on Twitch directly after this video goes up. And along with that, make sure to subscribe since only about 20% of the people watching right now are actually subscribed. Now let's get straight into it. Alright, so first of all, I can't wait to see all the comments from dumbass 12-year-olds saying all I do is hate on games. While this video is going to be largely negative, I don't hate Absolvement. I just feel like the developers don't want to change the negative aspects within their game, which has really annoyed me. I played during the beta testing, and basically every complaint I had during the testing period has largely gone unchanged. Some minor problems, some problems that are actually quite major, and both types of issues the developers refuse to address. And if you're gonna say that I'm nitpicking for some of the minor issues, I'm really not, because if a developer isn't willing to change something as small and easy to fix as little hitboxes, then a developer isn't going to change more major things, which I think is just lame. So yeah, this video is going to be largely negative. You can cry about it in the comments if you think I'm a hater, but I have never once in my entire life been wrong about any of the negative critiques I've given to games, and I only do this for the sake of improvement because I want to see good games get made. It's why I make these videos, it's why I'm making my own game. I like good games, I will not settle for less, and I think that developers, you guys watching this, shouldn't settle for less. So improve your games. First of all, the progression, it just kind of sucks. A majority of the progression is just straight up stat increases. Most talent cards in game are just base stat increases with some of the special ones providing more useful effects, but a vast majority of the ones you'll get don't provide any more than a stat boost, which is just kind of boring. Deep Woken, for example, which I better not get any fucking comments calling me a Deep Woken glazer for something I'm gonna say later, because out of every YouTuber, I've easily been the most critical about Deep Woken. But regardless, every card in Deep Woken has an effect, with the stat buff for them being, you know, a secondary positive that you take the card for. In Absolvement, it's the opposite, where a majority of the talent cards only give stats, and some of them occasionally give special abilities, which are situational at best, while the main focus of your talent cards is getting the stat boosts. Along with that, the game's difficulty is entirely artificial, with most of it being amplified by issues with the AI and hitboxes, as well as leveling, which I'll cover in more detail later. I don't know why this needs to be said to a game developer, but why the fuck are your hitboxes the same size or larger than the attack's visual effects? For those of you who aren't developers and don't know this, a common tactic in game development is to make player hurtboxes slightly smaller than the character's entire size, essentially making a bubble or box and fit it inside of your character, and that is the hurt box, the zone in which your character can be attacked, which, you know, causes damage. It shouldn't be equally sized to your character since it's a box. You know, this will result in getting hit by some things that feel like you shouldn't be getting hit by, because if it's the same size as your character, it's going to extend outside of your character. It's going to be larger than you, which is why most video games make them smaller. Now, this doesn't really apply to Roblox, because Roblox basically gives you hurt boxes for free because they made their own. But some devs choose to make their own, most don't. Regardless, on the opposite side of this is hitboxes, which you should be focusing on because you're a Roblox developer and you don't need to worry about hurtboxes. And you should really be doing the same thing a majority of the time. A great example of bad hitboxes is the Water Geyser move, which has its hitbox as a box around the AoE of virtual effects. If you're going to make a hitbox, make it very slightly smaller than the move, or make it mostly accurate. Don't just encase it in a fucking square, which I know the devs did because the hitbox is larger than the VFX, and lots of the other moves are like this. My game's rough drafted hitboxes are better than your game's current hitboxes, and it's not even a hard fix. It really isn't. All you gotta do is scale down that little square that you use to make the hitbox. Just scale that down by like 5 or 10% and boom, issue fixed. Now, along with that, 3 issues I had during beta testing, which have not even been somewhat improved, that I want to go over. First of all, some of the map designs just make fighting so much worse. Take this room with the hole in it, for example. The NPCs can get stuck in it temporarily, but while they're down there, they can still target you with spells. Super fun. Also, falling in pits or off the map will do 20% damage to you minimum, depending on your race and stats, but then these dumbass NPCs can fall into the pits, keep targeting you with spells for 15 seconds before they respawn, and then, you know, they don't take any damage from falling in the pits, which their AI doesn't know how to avoid. So why are you going to add AI that doesn't know how to avoid pits and has bad pathfinding, but then add map hazards that the AI can actively fall into? Which then punishes you for the bad AI, because now you're going to be forced to take damage from the AI because of how it works. It's stupid. And then there's the rolling. I quite literally told the developers directly that the rolling felt bad when you didn't roll cancel. The rolls are too long, too far, and feel way too floaty and non-physics based, so rolling makes you feel like you lack control of your character and just feels feels bad to do without roll canceling, which I get you're supposed to roll cancel, but that's not an excuse for rolling to feel like hot liquid ass being sprayed directly into my eyeballs. If your rolling is so bad to where you need roll canceling for it to feel normal, then maybe you should adjust your roll canceling, because there's tons of games that do rolling correctly. Elden Ring, Dark Souls, even Roblox games do it. Fucking hours on Roblox does rolling better than this. You guys are telling me you guys couldn't get a single decent, like, normal roll and you had to rely on the roll canceling for it to be good?
Root beer, red wine, another pina colada for the lady, and an Arnold Palmer for the gentleman.
Stan, what's wrong?
It's just, this is
Shit rolling physics.
I asked for a
Good rolling physics.
Hi, excuse me, sorry, I hope it's not too much trouble, but I actually ordered it,
Good rolling physics.
and for some reason you chose to f me in the face with what looks like a glass of piss and shit.
And I complained about this issue in the beta like 6 months ago, and there is no change. And then there's one more issue that I had specifically with the combat AI. Sometimes its pathfinding will break if an enemy is too close to you, causing them to rapidly spin around you while attacking, which is super annoying because it just makes it harder to parry and it kind of just catches you off guard. It's like a weird unintentional mix-up that kind of just sometimes hits you from the back, which, by the way, is also a super easy fix. So I don't know how you guys did it, because the pathfinding is supposed to send the enemy to you, and clearly what they did here was make the pathfinding radius not just around you, but the pathfinding radius is clearly deeply inside of your character's core or something like that, or it could just be a bubble that is hollow. Regardless, their pathfinding kind of just gets too close to you, and then it tries to find the origin point, which is likely in the center of your body, and because they walk past it, they walk past it again to walk backwards, and then they keep just spinning around you repeatedly. It's an easy fix, guys. Just fix that. Now, other than issues which have remained in the game since testing, this game has a few issues with its core gameplay loop, and by a few I mean a lot. The game is just super grindy. Now, I don't really mind grindy. I used to play weightlifting simulator back when the simulator era of Roblox first started, so grindy is not a problem for me most of the time, but the core gameplay loop is just random dungeon with spam enemies, level up, leave, repeat, and then maybe fight one of the 3 different bosses, which are all pretty technically similar to each other, and then you keep going. And the worst part is that the difficulty only goes up with stats, so as the game gets harder, it doesn't actually get harder. All the stats on the enemies just get amped up, and I feel like I shouldn't need to say this, but that isn't good game design. And for whatever reason, they decided that the game should just be a dungeon simulator at this point, which is confusing, because if I'm correct, the game is supposed to have a storyline at some point in the future. So the only reason why I could see them releasing the game in its current state is because they ran out of funding and needed to make money, so they chose to release the game in a pretty poor state as a method of acquiring funding for future potential updates. Or they'll do what most games do, where they take the money and just never update the game again, but we'll just have to wait and see. Now, one thing I didn't like was that the game actually released with less content than the game had in beta testing. When I last played before working on this video, which, you know, is strange because they didn't commit to fixing the issues that I and many others had previously pointed out, but they also removed multiple maps from the game and some of the off-spawn skills and obtainable skills, I think, which is strange because you guys already spent 6 months working on a tutorial and I guess the new main area map, because the actual gameplay and core mechanics have not improved, gotten worse, or even changed in the slightest. So as a whole, I think it's just really lame, because how are you guys going to spend all this time basically working on nothing, so then when I go to complain about things 6 months ago, I come back 6 months later, everything's the same except for the map. Like, what? And then you guys remove dungeon maps. You're removing variety from the game by lowering the amount of dungeon maps that you had, because there's certain dungeon maps that were in beta testing that aren't in the game anymore. And you guys remove those maps for what reason? Maybe the theming didn't match anymore, maybe you just didn't like the maps. Regardless, when your game is kind of a randomly generated dungeon grind fest, I think having at least some more map variety would be good, right? Look, now the game isn't that bad, I'm being quite critical here, but I think I have the right to be a bit more critical than usual when the developers have spent the last 6 months not covering the issues the game had and just seemingly ignored a majority of feedback that I and many other gave them. And it's honestly just disappointing because the game has some good structures and its core is cool, but they really didn't go too far past that because the game feels unfinished and rushed for release, because honestly it is in a sorry state for release. And while I shit on Deepwoken all the time, I think it's insane how much people in the Absolvement Discord shit on Deepwoken. Super ironic, because one of the things that people hated Deepwoken for was removing stuff before release, like the shipment mission and then Miner's Landing and all that. Really funny that Absolvement players have brought this up, considering the point I brought up earlier about them removing content from the game. Regardless, it's kind of like America. I'm America and I shit on this country all the time, but the moment a British person opens their mouth, I want to fill you with 9mm for my Canik TTI combat, which I do in fact carry every day, because I have my right to the Second Amendment and I will bear arms as I want to. But yeah, Absolvement isn't a bad game. It has good structures, it has good concepts, but the problem was that it was released too early for what it is. Conceptually, it is good, but in execution, it's kind of lacking because they kind of just released it in an unfinished state. And yeah, they can update the game over time, but first impressions matter a lot, and when your game's first impression is kind of just like grinding simulator, it's not really that great, right? So honestly, I do like the game, and I do think I want to see it improve, and I will play it over time as it gets updated and hope that it improves. But as it is now, it just is really lacking. It needs quite a lot to get up to the standards at which people are saying about how good it is, how amazing Absolvement is. Meanwhile, is it really that amazing? No, but it's still good, so I'll give it some leniency, because I could have gotten super nitpicky and just complained about stuff like how clearly they spent more money, or at least more time, on aesthetics than like the actual game's core concept mechanics. Because when you look at the mechanics, they're pretty basic, you know? It's kind of just like parry, block, dodge, versus like all the models and the aesthetics of the maps and stuff like that, which they put so much effort into the aesthetics, but it feels like the core combat and all of that they didn't put nearly as much effort into. So I hope that they update all of that stuff a lot more. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed something. I'm working on my game and stuff. I'll be dropping a new song cover in like the next week or so yeah. And of course, I'm bringing the monthly song covers back for all tier YouTube members, so give me suggestions. But speaking of YouTube members, you will only get a shout out if you are of tier 2 or higher. So, shout outs to YouTube members of tier 2 or higher. Green, Pickle, Brick, High Card, Goobka, Philip, Wizzy My Tizzy, Axelor, Flying Noodle 559, Simply Mo, Elstern, and Drizzy Drake Fan. And welcome new tier 3 member Fun Guns. I love you, Fun Guns. I could give you a big old kiss. I could smooch you. Anyway, I love you all. As usual, have an amazing day, and goodbye.